Okay, guys. Kind of an impromptu stream here. I set a print to print overnight last night, and I woke up to something I kind of wasn't expecting. I was expecting this to actually print just fine, but I wanted to try something a little different. It's going to be very brief, but I wanted to show you guys this print and kind of open the floor up to like a discussion about what could have happened potentially. This certainly isn't like a catastrophic print or anything like that, but um, I'll switch cameras here. I'll switch views here, and we'll take a look at what we have. That is the wrong one. Okay, there we go. So here is the print, and a quick rundown of the settings. The file is linked in the description of this stream. Uh, this was the Hatchbox Silver PLA at 185 degrees, and the bed was at 55 degrees. These were all like fairly standard speed settings and at a 100 micron layer height. And as you can see, we have an excessive, maybe not an excessive amount, but we have a lot of stringing, and it's kind of hard to see on the video there, but the front edge of this print is about a 1/4 inch lifted off the bed, and that kind of surprised me. Um, This model I plan in the future to print bigger and to chop up and print in separate pieces, but this is all one piece now. This is a MechWarrior Online model, and I actually watched this print for like the first, I would say, 15 layers or so. There was a solid layer attached to the heat bed, and it seemed to be adhered well. But when I woke up this morning, I was greeted with this, and this kind of strikes me as like some of the warping that you experience with ABS. Like, I'm kind of shocked that a PLA warped quite this much. But like I said, I just wanted to kind of open the floor up to some comments or a mini discussion about like what you guys might think happened. Man, I'm struggling with words today. I'm gonna come over here. I'm gonna take this off and try to break a little bit of the support material off because I can't see my mouse. I'm running my mouse over the cam. But as you can see, there's some truly beautiful areas on this print. Like some of the cockpit and stuff is super smooth. Some of the legs and the arms and the little vent behind the cockpit area is just beautifully smooth. And then in other areas, we have really bad, like it looks like it was printed way too hot, but it actually wasn't. Like I said, it's like at 185 degrees. So let's pull this off and try to get some of the support material off. And I guess we'll switch cameras here again. And if you take a look at the bottom of this, I mean, it warped pretty good. I mean, it's kind of shocking. And you can see there was a lot of contact with the heat bed. But we'll see how like you can see this foot here failed completely. That it was a complete failure. This should, come up here like another inch or so, and it's just kind of like a blob of stringing and chaos. But let me get some pliers here, and we'll try to break as much of this support material off so you can see the model. But we've got quite a bit of stringing in here. Hunter in chat said about printing the Hatchbox at 205 to 207. But I have done that, and it has printed okay. But I get a lot of stringing, even with like some fairly aggressive retraction settings. Fortunately, it's funny to say that. Fortunately, this was a failure, but fortunately for removing the supports, this was a failed print, so we can be kind of aggressive getting some of these pieces off of here. But I'm kind of disappointed. This is such a cool model. I wanted to have this sitting on my workbench. And the support's coming off okay. I think our interface layers could be spaced a little more. But yeah, definitely need to tweak the supports on this. This is using the newest profiles in Simplify 3D that Prusa supplied, but they don't quite seem to be cutting it. I know Angus from Maker's Muse has been talking recently that he's got some very good profiles for Simplify for the MK2 and supports. So I'm kind of anxious to see what he came up with. Because as you guys know, you can have a relatively beautiful print, and if your supports don't detach nicely, it kind of looks like crap. But most of these are coming off without too many problems. This is at 50% overall size for the file, so it would probably be easier if it was bigger. But still, you can see this isn't exactly tiny, so I've printed smaller files than this and not had issues with support. But we'll try to get most of it here. Some of these areas are kind of ugly, for sure. And I didn't do, I mean, to be fair, I didn't do a whole lot of tweaking with this print in Simplify. There's some of these areas that I could have taken the supports off. They were kind of unnecessary. I got pieces popping and flying everywhere. But no, I was just, when I woke up this morning, I was hoping this was going to be a little bit nicer than it ended up being. And, like, Magnus said a similar thing to Hunter about printing this at 200, not printing under 200. But I've had, like, I printed my Maker coin out. This is not it. Oh, it's over here. I think this is the final design, but you see, this was at 185, and this print's beautiful. Everything is, like, very smooth. There's very little stringing. The top layers are very nice, and this was at 185 degrees with the same filament and same speed, same everything. Whoops, I broke my gun off. I think that was destined to happen anyway, but... But like I said, I plan in the future, I do want to reprint this model. But when I print it, I guess more seriously, you might say, when I'm more serious about printing it, I'm going to bring the STL into a program, and there's a couple really good spots. One is where the legs connect. There's a nice flat plane in there where I can disconnect the entire leg and print them in separate upright pieces. So I'll do that. And then, like this cockpit area. Sorry, still struggling with the throat here. This cockpit area, I'll separate and print it standing up, and then I'll do my best to separate the arms, but there isn't really a good place in there to separate the arms, unfortunately. They're kind of integrated fairly tightly with the main chassis, with the armor plates and stuff that go over it. But let's rip a little more of this off here. But I was just curious to get some people's thoughts on why this warped so bad. Like, do you think it's that my basement is cold, and that it's got like a similar thing that happens with like ABS, where as the print got farther from the heat bed, the difference in temperature was a little too much for this PLA. I've had some minor warping, like even with these coins on the underside, the points of these ends, they very subtly curl. I mean, it's very subtle, but it is there. Like, I did notice that. And that is the same filament. But I never really expected to have to potentially print PLA with, like, an enclosure, because I imagine that would help if the temperature is the problem, but I'm not precisely sure why this warped so bad. Luckily, I'm glad I let it finish. When I woke up, it was about 80% done. And I was tempted to stop it. Because like I said, we have a jacked up foot here. But overall, like, most of it is intact and looks okay. So if nothing else, we have most of a cool model. I don't think it's... I planned on, like, finishing this up, and, I guess I should mention, too, that I did the first layer was at 210, so it should have adhered okay. But like I said, I'm interested to hear everyone's comments. Like, you can leave them in chat, but the big thing, like, the chat doesn't stay. You know, as soon as we end this stream, all the chat comments cease to exist. So, the big thing will be going to this video after it's recorded, because we're 10 minutes in, and I'm going to try to end this at maybe 15 minutes or so. Because I'm not actually streaming today. I've got stuff related to the channel to do, but not actually streaming. Since we hit 1,000 subs, if you guys didn't know, we hit 1,000 subs. Very cool. But I've got some preparations to make for tomorrow, because tomorrow is going to be our big, like, celebration kind of stream and stuff. So I'm trying to get some cool things lined up. These supports are not detaching all that cleanly. And unfortunately, I could be wrong, but unfortunately I think if we do print at a hotter temperature, that'll be even worse. I think the supports will end up gripping even better, I guess you'd say, on the model. Okay, I'll just take another minute or two here. We're in the home stretch. And then I'll give you guys a better look at this, because it is a cool model. If you guys haven't played MechWarrior Online, I streamed a little bit the other day. Super cool game. They've got some of the best iterations of the BattleTech mechs that have ever existed. Whoops, I broke it there a little bit. And this is one of the new models for an old mech. Like, this is an old mech, and it's their new, like, MechWarrior Online model of it that somebody ripped from the game. And this thing is kind of sexy. It's all streamlined and smooth and cool looking. And I always like those mechs. Like, I like Gundam. Gundam and kind of the Asian style mechs are cool, but I've always liked the older school big walking tank style mechs, as opposed to the, like, rocket strafing, like, super fast that kind of take on mechs. I like the big old lumbering guys, big old heavily armored stuff. All right, we're almost done. That's more or less that side of the model cleaned up. And it is just kind of funny. Like, we've got, I know some of it, like, as the model warped, it's gonna interfere with the subsequent layers, especially at 100 microns. But we've got so many beautiful areas and some pretty ugly areas. It's kind of an odd juxtaposition on the same model to see them, like, side by side. Okay, we're pretty good there, I guess. This thing is kind of ugly with all the marks from the support not coming off all that clean. Okay, that's fairly good. Let me turn autofocus on this camera again. Everybody cross their fingers. Are we autofocusing? Not really. I don't know why it never wants to kind of cooperate. Let's give it a try. I'll manually focus it. But here's our model, right? Here's our model. You can see it's a cool, like, it almost has like a jet-like appearance on the cockpit and stuff. But you see on the let me try to focus it. On the nose of the cockpit, it's kind of ugly. Again, like, a lot of the areas look like it was extruded too hot, even though it wasn't. Like some of you guys said, you would actually have extruded it a little hotter. I mean, I guess I can't really complain. Overall, this, even being kind of ugly, this is still a cool model. That's still a cool robot. Uh, but no, like I said, I'm just curious to see what you guys' thoughts are on why we had so much warping. I've had a little bit in the past, but I've never had quite that much warping. Like I said, it was tough to see on the bed, but this was oriented like this because I thought the layer lines would come out the best on some of these smooth areas if it was upright. And the back corner of the bed was still adhered nicely, and the front corner was lifted up almost a quarter of an inch. Uh, the Blades of Chaos asked, "What do I do with failed prints?" Well, a lot of them just get chucked in the bin. There really isn't an effective way of recycling filament for the average user. There are some systems that I think you can like grind stuff up and recycle them, but it is not very practical. Uh, it is not very practical. It's if you want to do it for the purely for the love of kind of messing with something like that, more power to you. But as far as like being a practical way to like salvage filament like this, not really the best way to go. Filament like this probably used. I think this came out to about 30 grams with the support removed. So it's relatively inexpensive to print a model like this. Uh, I'll quickly cover some of the questions people have asked about this to have more information for the discussion that hopefully happens. And this is PLA, if I didn't mention that. Did it get, where did I see that? Did it get hit or dragged? I don't believe so. It probably did. Yes and no. I would say yes and no. I wasn't here to see it, but I would assume that once it started to curl, the nozzle probably did make contact with the model just because it was curling. So I would think that's partially inevitable, and I think you could see a little bit of that on the gun barrel that I broke off. I wouldn't be surprised if it was getting hit as it warped and stuff, but I don't think it getting hit would have caused it to break loose because, again, I wasn't here to see it, but I would assume that if that happened, it would have dislodged most of the print if it happened early on. So I would assume this was just some like curling that happened, and I would assume it's temperature related. But like I said, I'm just interested to see what you guys think I should try next. I'll give this video a few days to get some comments and stuff, and then see what the general consensus is about like what settings I should try moving forward, and we'll do this print again and see how it turns out. As I mentioned, when I kind of get the settings tweaked a little bit, I'm gonna print this full sized. I think it's about that big. It's maybe 8 or 10 inches tall, because this is about maybe 5 inches tall, 4.5 or 5 inches tall, and this was at 50%. So the full size guy will be about that big, and we'll break it into pieces and print the legs separate, and then probably the bulk of the torso and stuff will print as a single piece. When did the fan come on? Layer 2, I believe. And again, some of these, that might be some of the areas we have to change settings, like maybe leave the fan off for the first couple layers. I don't really know. PLA is composting ready. Is it really? That's interesting if that's true. But no, like I said, guys, real quick stream. Just wanted to let you take a look at this and get some feedback on what you think I should try. Because if you guys haven't figured out yet, I'm kind of like new to this, so I'm trying to learn as much as possible. And with anything, I think it's best to learn in like a public way. Like I think it's great to have like an open dialogue about stuff. So I'm interested to hear some thoughts about this. Make molds. A lot of the discussion seems to be about what to do with I hesitate to say wasted, but the PLA from failed prints. But I'm also curious to see what the thoughts are. Like I said, I won't mess with the focus anymore. I'm curious to see what people's thoughts are on these areas that look like they're. It looks like it was extruded way too hot. But like I said, we were at 185, so I don't think that's the case. I'm curious to see what people think could lead to that. But Now, after I've cleaned this up, I think I can clean this up a little bit more, and I think this is worth keeping. It's kind of ugly when you look close at it, but overall, this is still a cool print. I could see taking like a little brass tube and fixing the gun on a permanent one. Making a cool little dude. I love the MechWarrior models. A couple other questions just to facilitate you guys having more information to comment. Do I have an enclosed printer? No. As you can see, it's sitting right back here. It's in my basement. It's currently 63 degrees in here. It's cold down here, but it does stay stable. It's almost always 64 degrees. About the lowest it gets is 63, and the highest it gets is about 65. So it's incredibly stable temperature-wise down here. Higher temperature in the room. Again, that's just kind of a fixed reality of the conditions I'm going to be printing in. So that's something to keep in mind. I don't really have a practical way at this point to heat my basement. Eventually, it would be nice if I could just wall this area off, this little workshop. I think it's about 20 feet by about 8 feet, so it's not all that big. But that would take a little bit of money and a little bit of time that I don't currently have. But yes, long term, it would be nice to enclose this area. Maybe keep it like it's 63 in here. Probably if I could keep it 70 degrees, that would probably help. But that's like I was saying. I'm sure there are other people that are dealing with some colder conditions that are still trying to do some prints. So hopefully this will not only help me, but some of you guys that are having to deal with, not necessarily having like a heated area that you're printing in. So we'll try to come up with some solutions, try to get this print cleaned up, and we'll try it a couple more times. I mean, I'll try it as long as it takes to come up with whatever works to get this guy nice and clean. Because I think the bigger one will be a little easier to print, but I love the scale of this. I think that's a really cool scale for something to have sitting on the bench here. Cool little dude. But yeah, that's it for today, guys. Unfortunately, I have to run, but I'm going to schedule the stream here in the next hour or so. I have it's scheduled on my my channel, and if you weren't aware, tomorrow we're going to be doing some giveaways and stuff. I have some IGUS bearings, a couple prints and stuff to give away, a couple like minor upgrade items to the MK2. Like I have a set of the cable chains and Rambo box that I'm going to give away, stuff like that. So hopefully some of you guys will stop by. I would imagine most of the people that have already subbed are going to stop by, but if you aren't subbed yet, consider subscribing. And since we hit 1,000 subs, we're going to give some stuff away. We're going to kind of celebrate in a stream tomorrow. So you're not huge with MechWarriors, but I would print that model. This isn't even some of the coolest guy, being honest. This was just one that I found on Thingiverse. If you guys haven't seen yet, it's worth going over to Angus on Maker's Muse. He's done a series on like if you're into 3D gaming on the PC or anything like that. He did a couple videos on how you can rip models from modern 3D games and clean the files up and make them print ready. And that's more than likely what the person that made this did, because this is rather obviously ripped straight from the game. So if you're interested in doing that, like if you either play MechWarrior and would want a different mech, there's a ton of mechs in that game, or you just like play another 3D game and you'd like to print some models from the game you love, it's worth going over and checking him out, because it's a fairly simple process, really. It can be a little fiddly. Like some models like this, it's probably best to chop the model up into a couple pieces, but overall it's a simple process. If you just like to get your hands on some cool crap from games you love, it's really worth doing. Buy barbecue filament, buy BQ filament, and you won't have problems. Well, if there's a magical filament out on the market, I'm game. But I'm a little skeptical of that claim. And like I said in the past, Hatchbox isn't my favorite PLA. I don't think it's I don't think it's the worst, and I certainly don't think it's the best, but I think it's something that oh, better quality is what BQ stands for. Better quality. Yeah, I do think there are some better quality filaments than Hatchbox out there, but I think it's decent enough that we should be able to print a model like this without having the problems that we had. So we'll try to get to the bottom of that. But anyway, guys, I don't want to drag this out. I'm glad so many people stopped in. We've only been going for like 20 minutes. It's kind of crazy how many people jump in stream so fast. I do appreciate you guys stopping by, but today is not a streaming day. Today we're getting other stuff done. So if you want to come and hang out tomorrow, I'm going to try to start. I don't want to say a time. But I'm on the East Coast here, so it's Eastern Standard Time. I'm guessing between 8 and 10 o'clock we'll start, and it'll probably be a long stream. We'll probably go 4 to 6 hours, I would guess, doing stuff and hanging out and talking and giving some stuff away. But like I said, if you're interested in that, check back, and it will be scheduled on my channel. So hopefully I'll see some of you guys tomorrow. If there's nobody subbed, consider it. Join the fun. Like I said, we already hit 1,000. Mind blowing. My mind is blown. Dario said 10 more days and I will fail with Prusa. I assume that means you bought a printer and it's on the way. Congrats, man. You're about to have a good time. I mean, it's not the Prusa MK2 is not a printer without problems, but you're more than likely going to have a great experience. I've had a great experience with it. It's been a great learning process. Highly recommend it. Haven't done my review yet, but that's in the works. That's gonna be coming soon. I do pity you guys that have had to wait. I managed to order mine like right before the orders really started piling in for Prusa, so I only had to wait like 3 days for mine to ship, something like that. So yeah, it does suck. I couldn't imagine like sitting here watching all these people on YouTube do stuff with their cool MK2s and having to wait so long for it. I hate waiting on stuff. But like I said, guys, just give me your thoughts. If you need to, you can scroll back to the beginning of the video and take a look at the initial shots of it laying on the bed. And just give me some input on what you think happened and what you think might be worthwhile trying to tweak settings-wise when I print another one of these. We'll probably print another one in 2 or 3 days after I've got some feedback. Print it overnight again, take a look at it, see if the changes made any difference, and we'll probably do that several times until we get this printed nicely. We get all the supports to detach cleanly. But yeah, let's do it. Let's work on this together and get this guy printed out nice and clean. But like I said, thanks everybody for stopping by. I wish I could stay longer, but I've got a lot of stuff to do in preparation for tomorrow. And I'll hopefully see you then. Hopefully I can give some of you guys that are in chat here some cool stuff. But yeah, thanks everybody. I'll see you.